Sarah and Alex Chen had finally found their dream home in Oak Ridge Estates after months of searching. The charming colonial with its wraparound porch and mature oak trees felt like it was made just for them. Their daughter Lily immediately claimed the window seat in her bedroom that overlooked a small pond where ducks gathered each morning. The neighbors welcomed the Chens with homemade pies and invitations to backyard barbecues, all except one. Gerald Simmons lived directly across the street in the largest house on the block. As HOA president for 5 consecutive terms, he carried himself with an air of authority that bordered on superiority. When Sarah waved to him while unpacking their moving truck, Gerald merely checked his clipboard and made a note before walking away. Alex joked that they'd won the neighborhood watch lottery, not realizing just how closely Gerald would be watching their every move. The first week in their new home passed in a blur of unpacked boxes and furniture arrangements. Sarah, a freelance journalist working on a series about urban development, converted the sunroom into her office. The natural light was perfect for her long hours of research, and the view of their backyard gave her a sense of peace she hadn't felt in their previous apartment. Alex, a pediatric nurse, appreciated the short 15-minute commute to the children's hospital, allowing him more time with Lily after his shifts. Their 8-year-old daughter wasted no time exploring every inch of their new territory. She mapped out the best climbing trees, discovered a family of rabbits living under the garden shed, and even started a collection of unusual rocks she found buried in the soil of what would become their vegetable garden. The previous owners had left behind a tire swing hanging from the sturdy branch of an ancient oak, which quickly became Lily's favorite spot to read her adventure books. The neighborhood children cautiously introduced themselves, first watching Lily from their yards, then gradually joining her for games of tag and impromptu treasure hunts. Within days, the sound of children's laughter became a regular feature of the quiet cul-de-sac. Parents followed suit, stopping by with welcome gifts and neighborhood advice. Eleanor Johnson, a retired teacher next door, brought over a detailed hand-drawn map highlighting the best walking trails, the quickest route to the elementary school, and which houses gave out the best Halloween candy. Sarah and Alex hosted their first backyard dinner party 2 weeks after moving in. They strung fairy lights in the trees, set up a borrowed projector for the kids to watch movies on the side of the shed, and Alex grilled his famous cedar plank salmon. Neighbors arrived with side dishes and wine, filling their yard with the comfortable buzz of conversation and new friendships forming. From their vantage point on the deck, Sarah noticed Gerald Simmons standing in his upstairs window, watching their gathering with an unreadable expression. When their eyes met, he didn't smile or wave, simply closed his curtains. Eleanor, noticing Sarah's gaze, leaned in close. "Don't take it personally, dear. Gerald keeps to himself these days. Ever since his wife left 3 years ago, he's thrown himself into HOA business like it's a mission. Some say he's lonely, others say he always had a controlling streak, and Margaret's departure just removed the buffer between him and the rest of us." Sarah nodded, making a mental note to perhaps bring Gerald a plate of leftovers as a goodwill gesture. She believed in giving everyone the benefit of the doubt, a quality that had served her well in journalism, helping her see beyond obvious narratives to the human stories beneath. Little did she know this professional skill would soon become essential in protecting the new life they were building in Oak Ridge Estates. The first clash came during an unseasonable heatwave when Alex installed a small window air conditioner in Lily's bedroom. By nightfall, Gerald was at their door with a laminated copy of HOA regulations and a highlighter. "Section 12.3, he said without greeting. "No external appliances visible from the street." When Alex explained that Lily had asthma aggravated by heat, Gerald's expression remained unchanged. "Rules exist for everyone's benefit," he stated flatly before handing Alex a pre-written notice of non-compliance, with a $100 fine already calculated. That night, Sarah discovered the previous owners had installed central air. It simply needed servicing. When she mentioned this to their next-door neighbor, Eleanor, the older woman's face darkened. "Gerald cited them for that installation too," she whispered. said they didn't file proper paperwork. They paid thousands extra for express approval directly to him. Sarah's journalist instincts tingled. Something didn't add up. Alex and Sarah scheduled an HVAC technician for the following morning, who confirmed their suspicions. The central system needed only a basic refrigerant recharge and filter change. While the technician worked, Sarah noticed Gerald taking photographs of the service van from his driveway. By afternoon, the central air hummed efficiently throughout their home, and Sarah removed the window unit from Lily's room. She expected that would be the end of the matter. 2 days later, a second notice appeared on their door. This one cited unauthorized HVAC modification without proper architectural review. The fine had doubled to $200. Alex called the HOA management company listed at the bottom of the form, only to discover that Gerald himself answered the phone. Apparently, he ran the management company as a service to the community. The conversation grew heated when Gerald insisted they should have submitted forms in triplicate before having the existing system serviced. "That makes no sense," Alex argued. "We didn't modify anything. We repaired what was already there." The previous owner's permissions expired with the change in property ownership, Gerald replied smoothly, "as outlined in bylaw subsection 47B, which you received in your welcome packet." Sarah spent that evening digging through their closing documents and HOA materials. The welcome packet Gerald referenced was nowhere to be found, and the official HOA regulations said nothing about permissions expiring upon property transfer. She drafted a polite but firm email citing the relevant sections of the actual HOA agreement and requested the fine be removed. Gerald's response came at 5:30 the next morning, a terse message stating that as HOA president, he had interpretive authority over regulations. The fine would stand. Almost as an afterthought, he added that their garbage bins had been placed 6 inches too close to the curb that morning, resulting in an additional $50 penalty. Sarah photographed the garbage bins, measuring their precise distance from the curb with a tape measure visible in the frame. She then documented the positions of other neighbors' bins for comparison. None appeared to follow any consistent placement pattern. That evening, she noticed Gerald watching her from his car as she took the measurements. Eleanor brought over lemon bars and coffee the following day. "I saw you measuring yesterday," she said quietly once they were inside. Be careful about challenging him directly. The Paddles tried that last year when he cited them for their birdhouse being the wrong shade of brown. Somehow, their mail started going missing, and their water got shut off twice for emergency repairs that nobody else experienced. Sarah thanked Eleanor for the warning but felt a familiar determination rising within her, the same feeling she got when investigating a story that didn't make sense. If Gerald thought he could intimidate them with arbitrary rules and suspicious fines, he had picked the wrong family to target. Over the next few weeks, the notices multiplied for increasingly trivial issues. A hose left uncoiled for one afternoon, Lily's chalk drawings on their own driveway, bird feeders that attracted wildlife. The final straw came when Gerald personally measured their fence line during a neighborhood picnic, then announced loudly that the Chens had stolen 3 feet of common land by improperly placing their backyard fence. He demanded they move it immediately at their own expense, estimated at nearly $5,000. That night, Sarah pulled out her closing documents, studying the property survey with growing confusion. According to official papers, their fence sat exactly where it should. Determined to understand, she began quietly researching property records, tax assessments, and HOA financial statements. She contacted the previous homeowner, who sent her something unexpected: a thumb drive containing years of emails with Gerald, including some discussing adjustments to property lines to create a development buffer. The thumb drive arrived in a plain envelope with a Washington state postmark and no return address. A handwritten note accompanied it. "I wish I'd fought harder. Maybe you still can." Sarah inserted the drive into her laptop, while Alex bathed Lily upstairs. The files were meticulously organized by date, each folder containing correspondence between the previous owner, Michael Dawson, and various HOA board members, predominantly Gerald. One exchange from 3 years earlier caught Sarah's attention immediately. Michael had questioned why his property survey differed from the one Gerald presented at a board meeting. Gerald's response was carefully worded. Minor adjustments to create uniformity are within board discretion. The alternative is a formal review that could delay your upcoming kitchen renovation approval indefinitely. Sarah cross-referenced the dates with county records. The Dawsons had indeed filed for renovation permits that same week. The implied threat was clear: cooperate or face endless delays. But why focus on property lines specifically? The following day, Sarah visited the county records office, requesting surveys of all properties bordering the eastern edge of Oak Ridge Estates. The clerk, a woman named Diane with decades of experience, raised an eyebrow at the request. "Interesting timing," Diane commented. "Someone else was in looking at those same records last week. Tall man, very particular about details. Wanted copies of everything." Sarah's pulse quickened. Did he happen to mention why he needed them? Said something about a developer's inquiry. Left his card. Diane shuffled through a drawer and produced a business card. Gerald Simmons, Oak Ridge Management Services. That evening, Alex noticed Sarah's distraction during dinner. After Lily went to bed, Sarah spread her findings across the dining room table: property surveys, tax records, and printouts from the Dawsons' emails. "Look at these property lines," she said, pointing to official surveys from 5 and 10 years earlier. "Now compare them to what Gerald is claiming." Alex studied the documents. "They're different. Not by much, but 3 feet here, 4 feet there, all along properties that border the nature preserve." Sarah pulled up the county GIS map on her laptop. If you combine all these adjustments, it creates a continuous strip of land between the neighborhood and the preserve. But why would he care about that? That's what I'm still figuring out. Sarah opened another email from the thumb drive. "But look at this message from Gerald to Michael Dawson. The buffer zone requirements make development currently impossible, but with strategic adjustments over time, that could change." The doorbell rang, startling them both. Through the peephole, Sarah saw Eleanor shifting nervously on their porch, glancing repeatedly over her shoulder. "I'm sorry to disturb you so late," Eleanor whispered when they opened the door. "But I saw Gerald watching your house again, and—" She hesitated, then produced a folded document from her pocket. "This came to me by mistake 3 years ago. I think you should see it." The letterhead read Westfield Development Corporation, and the first paragraph mentioned utilizing HOA executive authority to gradually secure the required buffer zone for future development opportunities. Sarah's kitchen table disappeared under stacks of documents as her investigation deepened. She discovered a pattern spanning years. Homeowners along the eastern edge of the neighborhood had all been pressured to move fences and cede small portions of their lots for questionable reasons. The claimed violations varied, but the results were identical: a gradually widening strip of land between properties and the adjacent nature preserve. Most concerning were the property diagrams Gerald distributed, which didn't match county records. Sarah compared them pixel by pixel on her computer and found subtle digital alterations. Why would someone manipulate property boundaries? The answer came from Eleanor, who mentioned that Gerald had once worked for Westfield Development, the same company that had tried repeatedly to purchase the nature preserve to build luxury condominiums. Their plans had been blocked because of insufficient buffer zones between development and existing homes. Sarah realized with a chill that Gerald wasn't just a power-hungry neighbor. He was systematically manufacturing that required buffer, one backyard at a time. Sarah created a detailed timeline on a corkboard in her office, connecting documents with red string like scenes from a detective movie. Alex teased her about it until he saw the pattern emerge. Gerald's property line adjustments had accelerated precisely when local zoning laws changed to require wider buffers between residential and commercial developments. 5 years ago, the county increased buffer requirements from 30 to 50 feet. Sarah explained, pointing to a county ordinance. That same month, Gerald began targeting the first house on the eastern perimeter. A quick internet search revealed that Gerald had left Westfield Development officially, but LinkedIn showed he maintained connections with several executives. His consulting firm, the same one that managed the HOA, listed property acquisition strategies among its services. Sarah gained an unexpected ally when Diane from the county records office called. "I found something odd," she said. "The official surveys never changed, but someone's been filing supplementary documents referencing mutually agreed boundary adjustments signed by homeowners. Let me guess, all houses bordering the nature preserve." "Exactly. And technically, those adjustments aren't legally binding without a formal reserve and deed modification, which never happened." Sarah's breakthrough came when she located Thomas Rivera, who had sold his home in Oak Ridge Estates 2 years earlier. "Gerald made my life miserable," Thomas confirmed via video call. "Started with petty fines, escalated to threats about my fence and shed. When I stood my ground, my mortgage company suddenly received paperwork claiming I was in violation of local ordinances, almost triggered a default. I couldn't fight both battles, so I gave in on the property line, and then sold as soon as I could." "Did he ever mention Westfield Development?" Sarah asked. "Not directly, but I'm an architect. When he showed me the required adjustment to my fence line, I recognized the exact measurement. It matched the buffer zone requirement for mini-mall construction." Thomas paused. "I always wondered why he focused on that specific distance." That night, Sarah accessed public corporate records. Westfield Development had created a shell company 3 years earlier called Oak Ridge Opportunity Partners. The registered agent was a law firm, but the corporate address matched Gerald's consulting office. The final piece fell into place when Sarah examined aerial photos of the neighborhood from the county's GIS database. Comparing images from 5 years ago to recent ones, the eastern perimeter had indeed shifted inward by nearly 20 feet in some places. If all the remaining properties, including the Chens, were similarly adjusted, the resulting buffer would precisely meet the 50-foot requirement needed for commercial development of the nature preserve. Sarah printed everything and created a secure online backup. Something told her these documents wouldn't remain accessible for long once Gerald realized she was investigating. His pattern of intimidation had worked before because each homeowner fought alone. This time would be different. Sarah knew confronting Gerald alone would be her word against his established authority. She needed allies and irrefutable evidence. She compiled a digital presentation with county-certified surveys, altered documents side by side with originals, and financial records showing Gerald's ongoing consulting payments from Westfield Development, a clear conflict of interest he had never disclosed. Sarah approached neighbors carefully, starting with Eleanor and others who had mentioned issues with Gerald. Each conversation added new pieces to the puzzle and new supporters to their cause. They scheduled their move at the quarterly HOA meeting, where Gerald planned to formally demand the Chens modify their fence line. The room fell silent when Sarah connected her laptop to the projector instead of yielding the floor. "Before we discuss my fence," she began calmly, "I'd like to clarify exactly where our property lines fall according to official county records." The presentation that followed left the room in stunned silence. Gerald's face transitioned from confidence to shock to anger as his years of manipulation unraveled before the entire neighborhood. Sarah's first recruiting conversation happened with the Paddles, whose birdhouse had triggered Gerald's wrath the previous year. Initially hesitant, they opened up when Sarah showed them the pattern of harassment documented in her research. "We thought it was just us," Sanjay Patel admitted. "Gerald implied we were being singled out because we didn't understand American property norms. He told us the same thing about not understanding the rules because we were new to the neighborhood," Sarah replied. "He's been using that tactic for years." Similar conversations followed with the Jacksons, the Steins, and the Rodriguez family. Each had stories of unexplained fines, delayed approvals, and subtle intimidation. Most importantly, 6 households along the eastern perimeter confirmed receiving demands to adjust their property lines, for various manufactured reasons. Gerald, meanwhile, increased pressure on the Chens. New violation notices appeared almost daily, some for infractions that had occurred before they even moved in. When Alex challenged a citation for non-approved mailbox installation that predated their ownership, Gerald simply added a legacy compliance surcharge. Behind the scenes, Sarah organized secure group messages and private meetings at Eleanor's house. They established a rotation for documenting Gerald's movements, photographing his interactions with unknown visitors to the neighborhood, and noting when he measured property lines or took photos of homes. 5 days before the quarterly HOA meeting, Sarah received an anonymous text message. Check permit applications for Oak Ridge Commons Plaza, filed yesterday. A quick visit to the county planning office confirmed her suspicions. Westfield Development had submitted preliminary plans for a commercial development bordering the nature preserve, with Gerald Simmons listed as the zoning compliance consultant. The night before the meeting, Sarah faced a moment of doubt. What if this backfires? She asked Alex as they finalized her presentation. Gerald has connections we don't have. And you have the truth and the entire neighborhood behind you. Alex reassured her. Besides, I've seen you take down corrupt city officials with less evidence than this. The community center buzzed with unusual energy as neighbors filed in for the HOA meeting. Gerald arrived last, clipboard in hand, flanked by 2 men Sarah recognized from Westfield Development's website. He called the meeting to order with practiced authority, moving efficiently through the agenda until reaching property compliance issues. Our first matter concerns the Chen residents, Gerald announced, projecting what he claimed was their property survey. As you can clearly see, their fence encroaches on common area by 3 feet, 4 inches. I move that we require immediate relocation at owner expense. Sarah stood, laptop in hand. Before we vote, I'd like to present some relevant information. She connected to the projector without waiting for permission. This won't take long, but I believe everyone should know exactly what's at stake here. And it's much more than just my family's fence. Gerald attempted to object, but Eleanor, the board secretary, quietly reminded him that homeowners were entitled to respond to compliance issues. The room fell silent as Sarah's first slide appeared. Aerial photos showing the gradual, systematic alteration of the neighborhood's eastern boundary. The aftermath unfolded rapidly. Homeowners called for an immediate vote of no confidence, removing Gerald from his position that very evening. The county property assessor's office launched an investigation based on evidence Sarah provided, eventually requiring Gerald to pay substantial penalties for document falsification. Westfield Development withdrew their latest proposal amid negative publicity. Gerald's house went on the market within weeks. The HOA transformed under new leadership that included a system of rotating positions and transparent record-keeping. Sarah, utilizing her investigative skills, helped create a digital archive of all neighborhood documents, accessible to every homeowner. The neighborhood celebrated their first true community gathering that summer, with a party extending across multiple backyards, with fences exactly where they belonged. Lively's chalk drawings decorated sidewalks, window air conditioners hummed without comment during the August heat, and bird feeders attracted goldfinches and cardinals to yards across Oak Ridge estates. The Chens had not only protected their property, but helped restore something more valuable, a neighborhood where rules served the residents, not the other way around. The HOA meeting concluded with an unprecedented 3-hour session as neighbors processed Sarah's revelations. Gerald attempted to dismiss her evidence as misunderstandings and conspiracy theories, but his defense crumbled when Sarah played a recorded conversation between Gerald and a Westfield Development executive discussing leveraging HOA authority to secure development permissions. Before the meeting ended, Gerald and his 2 associates had stormed out, and the remaining board members voted unanimously to hire an independent auditor to review all HOA records. Sarah woke the next morning to a flurry of text messages from neighbors and a voicemail from Diane at the county records office. "The documents you flagged have been officially marked for review," she reported. The assessor wants to meet with you this afternoon if possible." Within a week, 3 separate investigations had launched. The county assessor's office focused on property line discrepancies and document fraud. The district attorney opened an inquiry into potential real estate fraud and abuse of HOA authority. Most surprisingly, Westfield Development initiated an internal investigation, quickly distancing themselves from Gerald and claiming they had been misled about property boundary certifications. Gerald's house listed for sale exactly 17 days after the HOA meeting. The real estate photos showed empty rooms, hastily painted walls, and a half-cleared office. Neighbors reported seeing him hurriedly loading his car late at night. The for sale sign remained standing for months, an unmistakable symbol of the community's victory. The transformation of Oak Ridge Estates continued through summer and into fall. A special committee drafted new HOA bylaws emphasizing transparency, term limits, and clear appeals processes for all decisions. The document archive Sarah created became a model that other neighborhood associations requested information about. Most satisfying for the Chens was the removal of all spurious violations from their property record and the refund of every improper fine Gerald had levied. On the 1-year anniversary of their move to Oak Ridge Estates, the Chens hosted a neighborhood potluck in their backyard. Children ran freely between connected yards, and Eleanor proudly showed off her new butterfly garden, installed without navigating a labyrinth of approvals. The nature preserve remained undeveloped, with a community initiative underway to have it permanently protected as conservation land. As twilight softened the summer evening, Sarah sat on her porch swing beside Alex, watching Lily playing tag with her friends. "Do you ever regret buying this house?" Alex asked quietly, "considering everything that happened." Sarah smiled, looking across their yard, where neighbors chatted in comfortable groups, sharing food and laughter. "Not for a second," she replied. "Some places are worth fighting for, and sometimes the fight is what transforms a house into a home." Across the street, a young couple toured Gerald's still vacant house with a realtor. Sarah raised her glass in their direction, making a silent promise that their welcome to the neighborhood would be everything hers should have been. A genuine community where rules existed to serve the people who called this place home.